I live in Middle England, in the mid-latitudes. I'm middle-aged, earning a middling salary writing travel books and teaching geography at Oxford University. My life is extremely comfortable, or at least it was. It all changed when I foolishly decided to write a book about what life is like in the hottest, coldest, wettest and driest inhabited places on Earth. It was the toughest year of my life, but it wasn't enough for my publisher. The places I went to were all permanently inhabited. She argued that there must be nastier places on Earth, even if humans couldn't live there all the time. She challenged me to go and find them. This is the heart of darkness, the Congo Jungle. Home to an endless menu of deadly diseases, the resting ground of countless intrepid explorers. My aim was to spend time with the only people in Africa who survive deep in the jungles of the Congo. The pygmies. But flying south to the capital of the Republic of Congo, Brazzaville, I couldn't spot a single reassuring sign of human existence. I was going into this carnivorous forest, but would I ever make it out? I'd been in the country for less than a day, but already people were hinting at the folly of my mission. Anel, who was accompanying me to Brazzaville's main market to pick up a few last-minute provisions, was clear that the forest was no place for the urban chic.
It's not safe at all. You have animals there, and I don't like that. You know, in the Africa we have a lot of gris, you know, the fetish.
Oh, sort of magic.
Yeah, magic.
You say it's bad magic in the forest.
Bad magic. How long are you gonna be there?
I don't know, about a month, that sort of order.
1 month is too long, man. Just one week and see them. Honestly.
No, I want to try and see how they operate in the forest, so I need a bit more time. Having tried to scare me off with tales of dark magic, Anel then switched tack. She cleverly played on my love of a good meal and proceeded to show me what was on the menu in the jungle.
Yeah, very good. There's the termites, and it's all ready to eat.
She started off gently with smoked termites.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, they
Do
are.
you love it?
Actually, that was there. It was slightly
Yeah, I
nice.
told you. It's very good.
I had a bit of taste. But quickly got nasty with brightly coloured caterpillars and finally extremely lively crickets.
Are they nice? Do they taste good?
I don't know.
You haven't tried them?
No, never ever.
Really?
Never.
Beautiful.
Great. Perhaps I should become a vegetarian. I put a brave face on it, but I was determined. My plan was to live as the pygmies did. No luxuries, just essential items of survival. I'd read that salt was hard to come by, and obviously crucial in the hot and humid jungle. Anel gave up. I was flying in the face of all that was sensible, but the least she could do was get me some protection. In a quiet side street, she took me to see a fetisheur. I need some forest protection, please. Everything.
Bad magic and bad
spirits, bad animals.
Animals, yeah.
Whatever.
Everything, yeah.
I need an all-inclusive job.
En fait, il veut la totale, la protection totale.
C'est bien. Ouais.
The Congo jungle is only partly known. The fetisheur provides protection for all that is unknown.
Okay. Là, faut de l'invisibility. Okay.
Just take it. I wasn't totally clear about what I was being protected against, but I caught the words snake, elephant, gorilla, and invisibility. It all felt faintly ridiculous, if menacing, until I learned that a curse was responsible for the injury, the like of which I'd never seen before, on the arm of this man waiting patiently for treatment. So this is like standard procedure in preparation for venturing into the forest?
Yeah.
Good, very good.
I hope so.
So do I.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. It's okay.
Of course.
It's okay. So now we are ready for go.
Ready for go. I was really looking forward to this trip, but the visit to the fetish has brought home to me the fact that the forest has multiple dangers. You know, there are still a lot of unknowns in there, and any preparation that I have bringing from Europe is probably not enough. Part of me is looking forward to it, but there's definitely an element of trepidation. My final destination was Bangi Mataba, home, so I'd been told, to the Bayaka Pygmies. The next morning I left Brazzaville and flew north to Oweso, transferred to boat and headed into one of the most sparsely populated regions of Africa. I was barely a degree north of the equator, and the blistering heat, oppressive humidity and interminable forest only helped to compound my underlying anxiety and utter isolation. Before I got to Bangi Mataba, I needed some tips on jungle survival, so I'd arranged to meet one of the handful of Westerners who live in the forest. With so few people living here, the wildlife is relatively undisturbed, which is why primatologist Cricket Sands has lived here for the last 2 years. It's a jolly long way here though, isn't it? I mean, 6 hours, and that swampy bit, just before you get here, like up to the middle and you think, oh God.
Well, that's nothing yet. I mean, wait till tomorrow. Got mud up to here.
That's the easy bit?
Yeah,
okay.
Nice clear water.
Okay, I'm glad I came, Cricket. Cricket had agreed to let me tag along with her on her daily walks looking for chimps. It was up at first light and on with the damp clothes. I'd been here less than 24 hours, and yet every garment I owned had succumbed to the thick, fluid air of the forest. With humidity levels running as high as 87%, fungus flourishes, and since you have to walk everywhere, you've got to keep your feet in good nick.
So, going out into the forest, there's some things you should be aware of. We may encounter elephants. The next type of concern I would have would be a gorilla. So, imagine just walking along the path and you hear a scream or a bark, and it may startle you. Don't scream, the guys will stop and move us all together into a group, because they'll know where every single gorilla or elephant is and guide us out of harm's way. We may make a detour.
So all I have to do is keep my eyes on the guys?
Yes.
And if they stop, I stop? The pep talk to the new kid on the block made it clear that I should keep myself squarely in the middle of the group. Cricket explained that we were heading for a particular fig tree where the chimpanzees might be feeding. Even after 2 years in the forest, her eyes and ears were her trackers, Jokin and Mbio. These guys were pygmies who had moved downriver from their traditional lands and were utterly in sync with the forest. Following the trails created by the elephants on their meanders through the forest, they always seemed to know where they were going.
This is the fig tree. The fruit's not ripe, it's dropping. You can hear it dropping, but it's still a bit hard for chimps. Monkeys will eat it unripe.
Could I eat this?
Sure, it's got insects in it, though.
Extra protein.
You didn't get enough breakfast?
Okay, that's all right. It had taken us an hour to get to the first fruiting tree, but no chimps. We continued on and on. My feeling walking through the forest is claustrophobic. I mean, you know, you just can't see the sky, which is, well, it's a bit perturbing after a while. At the moment, I'm still a bit tense about this place. I have to say. I haven't relaxed into it. I hope I will. Two hours later, there was a welcome break from the claustrophobia when we arrived at a bai. These flooded natural clearings are peculiar to these parts and afford a welcome if spooky sight of the sky. But they are insignificant breaks in this forest that covers an area the size of Europe and whose canopy at 150 metres above the ground is so densely packed that it can take a raindrop 10 minutes to reach the forest floor. I needed this. Very good food. If you got lost out there, how long do you think you could survive?
Not very long. It would be hard to find food. It would be hard to find water. You wouldn't get much sleep because of all the insects. Also, there's snakes and other animals that are dangerous. Probably just find a nice place and sit down and enjoy my last days in the forest without working too hard.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, isn't it? After 2 years here, I'd imagined cricket would be more self-sufficient. But on day 2, it became clear that for a beginner like me, there was only one way to survive. On no account lose sight of your guide. What sort was it?
It was a yellow mamba.
Yellow mamba. Sounds kind of dangerous.
They're very dangerous. Did you see Cobra's response? When he saw it, he just started pushing us all backwards.
Yeah. I'm glad he saw it first. That the snake had slithered away was obviously down to my protection totale from the féticheurs, but they had provided no defence against the distance. It was 2 in the afternoon, and we'd already covered 17 kilometres. Yesterday, we'd walked 21. And you've got to be alert all the time, haven't you?
Yeah, checking in the canopy for chimps and on the ground for gorillas and elephants.
Yeah, as well as the roots and branches and logs and yellow mambas. I'm starting to get slightly concerned now because we haven't actually seen anything. And when I go further north and actually have to get involved in living off the forest, well, the absence of wildlife here makes me wonder what will live on. I mean, it's not just the big animals, but I've hardly seen any insects. I've seen one caterpillar. It's a lot of effort for quite a small reward, isn't it? Well, 0 reward, really.
We could see chimps right around the corner. There could be 20 chimps sitting there, and we could spend the afternoon with them.
You must think I'm a real weakling. I'm sorry. I shouldn't moan so much.
We could see. Maybe it's our fault because we're being so loud, tromping through the woods and breaking branches and...
Okay, I hear that message. Actually, it's my fault. No, yeah, you're probably right. It is, isn't it? I should be extra on my very best behaviour. And who knows? Another 5 minutes.
Another 5 minutes, right around the corner. Sitting up in that tree.
Yeah, just watching us. Needless to say, there weren't any chimps just around the corner, and the next day, Cricket raised the bar. She decided we needed to go to another camp deeper into the jungle. We walked for 6 hours through a swamp. It became clearer and clearer that I didn't have what it takes to be a primatologist. My only hope was that the pygmies weren't quite as driven as the redoubtable Cricket. But incredibly, her hardcore route march paid off. Just an hour into the morning walk, we finally saw what we'd come for.
She's not giving me the most glamorous view. It's actually a rear sticking out of the tree. This
like a little cup.
Jane then proceeded to show us how to build a day nest.
In a nest, you've got to make it nice and comfy. She's resting. You are incredibly fortunate.
Yes, I think I appreciate it.
After her rest, we whiled away a magical morning, following her moving gently through the canopy. I could only hope that in the weeks ahead I might come to be 1,000th as relaxed as she was in the forest. I'd left Cricket to her chimps 2 days before and was heading further into the heart of the forest. My rendezvous with the Bayaka pygmies was set to be at Bangi Mataba, a small village along the Mataba River. To get there, I'd hitched a ride with a team of eco-guards, led by Johnny, the head conservator of Nubali and Doki National Park, who seemed to revel in my discomfort.
My clothes go through 3 phases. Since I've got here, I've never been absolutely dry. It's just damp, wet, or very wet. This is only a minor shower. I'm just going into the wet phase.
It's dry season for me. No problem.
Oh, you're looking forward to the dry season. Dry out for the year.
Bangi Mataba turned out to be a Bantu village. Bantu is a term used for any non-indigenous settlers. These incomers to the forest kept to the river margins. The Pygmies village was just an hour's walk into the jungle.
Bonjour.
But good manners dictated that I pay my respects to the village elders here first.
C'est Jean-Pierre.
Jean-Pierre, bonjour.
Bonjour.
C'est un très joli village, je crois.
It quickly became clear that it would be rude not to spend at least a few days in the village. But I thought it would be an opportunity to experience the life led by these Bantu, who have a strong distrust of the interior of the forest. The following morning, my self-appointed tour guide, Jean-Pierre, marched Johnny and me down to the river, which was, he told me, the lifeblood of the village. He decided what I really needed was a paddling lesson, which all seemed relatively straightforward, until the arrival of the boy on the waterborne skateboard gave my host another idea.
I can swim, but what about things like, I don't know, crocodiles?
Crocodile, yeah, we have it. In this river.
What, out there?
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, I don't think...
Yeah, it's better.
Les crocodiles aiment les Anglais?
Non, les crocodiles n'aiment pas les Anglais. Ils sont contre les Blancs.
Since the crocodiles were reputed never to eat white flesh, there seemed no honourable escape route.
Mais ce n'est pas facile, hein?
Attention, hein, faut
Ouais,
pas
ouais,
tomber, hein. Faut pas tomber. Oui. Okay. Very difficult. Alors, very good.
Despite the entertainment I was providing, I felt 2 immersions were enough to prove that crocodiles didn't eat the English. So I gave up my Silver Surfer impressions and got into some dry clothes. The next part of Jean-Pierre's tour of village life illustrated the abundance of this environment.
So is this the best place to fish?
Yeah, it's the best one.
Off the main river?
But you can find many places like this. Special, good place for...
There the riverbank looks impenetrable, there are myriad little side streams if you know where to look.
Don't know if you have a chance.
Oh, a fish. Yes, look at that.
Yeah, wow.
The Bantu seemed to expend as little energy as possible in surviving, and the jungle was full of labour-saving surprises. These ancient palms have a sap that is naturally fermented. They are living demijohns. The only work required is to get up to the top of the tree. The Bantu tap them by slicing off the top and inserting a tube into the stem. The sap drains off into a container.
Every day, 25 liters.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah,
What a distillery, blimey. Gosh.
Yeah, but
I wondered where else in the world you could hang out a bucket and expect it to fill up with booze.
Somebody in Brazzaville likened the forest in Congo to Eden, saying it was untouched, just like God made it. And that thought's returned to me since I arrived in this village, because people have a good time of it here. There are fantastic rivers, teeming with fish, palm wine. No one seems to overexert themselves here. They have a good life, and I'm enjoying myself.
There was one disturbing aspect to life in Bangui-Mataba. I'd seen a handful of Bayaka during my stay here, but always laden down with heavy loads or doing menial tasks. When I asked Jean-Pierre and another elder about them, it became clear that the relationship between Bantu and Bayaka was far from simple.
Thieves.
they're stealing.
Oh, really? Pygmies steal things?
In
By
the
mo-
field every time. Yeah.
Really? They steal from where? From houses?
For the field.
Ah, from the fields.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Johnny didn't agree with the sentiments he was translating, but it became clear that the Bantus' distrust was built on a generalised fear of the forest. They saw the Bayaka as almost subhuman precisely because of their ability to thrive in the place where no human ought to be, the forest. On my last day in Bangui-Mataba, I got a glimpse of what fueled the Bantus' fears. Two weeks prior to my arrival, the villagers had trapped and killed a leopard, which had been helping itself to their protein supply, chickens, goats, and even a dog. But the problem hadn't gone away. Another leopard had started taking animals.
Celui-là, il a déjà tué un cabré
Really, it's
et deux cabrés. En plus, c'est un chien.
already killed 2 goats and a dog. You have a problem. Paradoxically, when the forest invades the village, the Bantu seek help from the forest. Like everything that is not human, Anglimoto, the guardian spirit, lives out there. He was summoned to drive away the marauding leopard. He's a complicated being, half man, half spirit, part protector, part dangerous mischief maker.
So, the forest is where he lives, is it?
Yeah, he's living in the forest.
And is he a good guy, a bad guy?
He's a good guy for the life of the village.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Jean-Pierre later explained that Anglimoto understood everything that went on in the surrounding forest. If I respected him, he advised, I would get protection. If not, he warned, he could cause me trouble. Anglimoto's appearance was also an excuse for a party.
Oh, Monsieur le Judge. And you have the biggest cup. Very sensible. Yeah.
Blimey, he's doing it in one go. And once well fortified by the wine, it was time for the party games. Inevitably, a dugout race on the beloved river. Teamed up with Jean-Pierre, we made pretty good going on the downstream leg, just managing to stay in front of the stragglers. But after the upstream turn, the current started to take its toll, and despite raucous support, we faded drastically. Three pints of palm wine is definitely not the ideal fuel for boat racing, but at least I'd stayed upright in the water. The rain was a timely reminder that this would be my last night under any permanent shelter. Tomorrow I was leaving this riverside Eden, going to confront what the Bantu fear most, a Bayaka hunting trip into the depths of the forest.
What about building these leaf shelters? Are they easy to
They think you'll be able to do it.
They do?
Yeah, if they teach you a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
I think you'll be able to do it. It really does look pretty easy. I confess, 17 years I've never tried it.
Perhaps you and I ought to have a race then.
The pygmies get nearly all their food from the forest during these hunting trips, and they certainly seem to pack light, taking only axes, nets for hunting, cooking equipment, and astonishingly some insurance against wet matches.
So are we taking any food at all?
I think some of them are taking a little bit of manioc and some palm oil nuts.
We need to be successful in the hunt.
They have to be successful, yeah. We have to find food every day.
The Bayaka evidently had complete faith in their ability to provide for themselves. I was determined to live as they did for the week of the hunting trip, so I deliberately left behind all my Western comforts and provisions. As we headed off, I tried to remember the last time I'd gone for a day without food, and ominously concluded that I never had. Unlike the Bantu, who clear the forest margin for agriculture, the pygmy tribes of the Congo Basin are the only people who have the knowledge to survive deep in the forest. Within hours, all signs of civilization had been left behind, and we were in primary jungle. As I'd found at Cricket's, it all looked oppressively the same. Yet the Bayaka walked confidently through the maze of elephant trails as though they were signposted.
Oh, here it is. Home for the next couple of weeks.
Wait, this is where we're making camp?
We're making camp here.
Okay, fine. Good. Doesn't look any different from the rest of the forest, but...
It may not have looked different, but apparently it was perfect. It was brooms to the deck and up with the shelter. I watched in amazement as the women emulated the latest design in domed tents. 10 minutes for the frame made from supple saplings, followed by a fly sheet of ngungu leaves.
They're just sticks and leaves,
yeah.
You know, sticks and leaves, a house out of sticks and leaves. So,
I don't think that's that much of a challenge, actually.
How difficult could it be? In front of a critical-looking audience, I set about making my own accommodation.
Well, like that?
Yeah.
And after a bit of teasing and a few helping hands, I had the makings of a framework.
It's a bit blunt.
But according to Jenga, my technique with the leaves left a lot to be desired.
If you keep the leaves tight, rain won't reach you.
Still, at least I was giving it a go.
Where are you sleeping tonight, Lou?
I don't know.
Good luck, mate.
That's what they asked me. I made the mistake of laughing at what you were doing, and then they said, well, where are you sleeping tonight?
Ah.
If I say so myself, I thought my hut compared pretty well to the rest of the camps. It was certainly going to be more comfortable than the unmarried men's lean-to, where Louis was going to have to sleep. The fetishers' spells had worked brilliantly so far, but they hadn't given me anything against insects, and hundreds of tiny, infuriating bees were having a banquet on the salts encrusted on my shirt and skin.
I was told about the sweat bees before I came out here, and they don't sting, so I thought, well, they can't be that much of a problem. But they're deeply annoying, and it will be interesting to find out how much energy you spend every time you do that, because it's absolutely constant all the time, and it just sort of wears me down.
Some of the men had gone out to hunt while the camp was being built, but had returned empty-handed, so supper was a meagre affair. Louis told me just to wait until tomorrow.
What's on the menu?
Well, blue duiker, certainly, and they say, you know, there's a good chance we get a red duiker, which is a much larger animal. It's good if we get, you know, one or two of those that suffice for the whole camp.
Well, I'd be quite pleased to start, actually, get away from these sweat beasts.
You don't want to be around the hunting camp in the daytime because you get, you know, filaria flies and sweat bees, and you've got to be on the move in the forest to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Cleansed, the Ba'aka turned their attention to hunting. We moved for an hour through the forest and stopped at a point which they thought looked promising. Then they set up the nets. The men lay them out and the women prop them up, pin them down, and generally make everything shipshape. The idea is to make a huge circle 250 metres across, with a small opening. The men will enter the circle and beat the game towards the nets. But since I couldn't see more than 20 metres in any direction, how they managed to make the ends meet, I don't know.
They set up their nets, it's like according to family groups.
Oh.
People set up their nets next to other people that they're related to through marriage or something else.
Right. And which way are they going to drive the animals? It's this way.
They're making the circle like this. So they're going to go inside and then drive them out here. If we're lucky, one will come out over here.
The hunt itself sounded better than it looked. According to Louis, each hoot or yelp meant something. The beaters were perfectly coordinated.
What do we do if we see an animal?
Well, if we see an animal, just jump on it as fast as you can.
If a beater spots an animal, he shouts to the rest of the group, telling them what the animal is and what direction it's headed. Louis and I stayed outside the circle, salivating.
I think they've spotted a blue duiker. They've spotted a blue duiker. They're arguing about whether it got out of the circle of nets or not. Sounds like they think it got away.
You don't win every time, then.
No, you don't.
As the day wore on, the equation between kilometres covered and food procured was tipping startlingly towards weight loss.
It's just walk, walk, walk. And even when you stop to wait by the nets, there's nowhere to sit. I've been told if I sit on the ground, then there are worms that go into your backside, so I'll try to avoid that. So I'm feeling hungry, but I don't know, no one else seems to be too worried about it. I suppose it's just the way it is. Sometimes you catch things, sometimes you don't.
Porcupine got away.
Porcupine.
Damn. They're blaming one of the hunters. Good eating, too bad.
Still meatless that night, we had another vegetarian supper of manioc flour formed into cobs and roasted on the fire.
Go for it.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yes, that's about it. Let's hope they catch something in the hunt tomorrow.
Almost entirely tasteless, it was at least temporary relief for our empty stomachs. The pygmy's average height is about 4'7½". Some people think this is because there is an evolutionary advantage in being small in the jungle. Others that it's just the result of food deprivation over millennia. The last 48 hours were pushing me to side with the deprivationists.
Blue duiker. Uwa is a blue duiker. They're calling up people's names, so...
The third day started out with high levels of enthusiasm all round.
It's day 3 and the hunters still haven't caught anything, which isn't the way it's supposed to be. And all I've eaten so far is manioc. I'm starting to feel worried.
Yeah.
Certainly disappointed, because I came here expecting to pig out on meat all the time, but it's not as easy to catch as you might think.
Day 4 wasn't any better. After covering God knows how many kilometres to no avail, I suspected that team morale was beginning to wane. Cricket's highest score of 11 days without seeing any animals was coming back to haunt me. Again, we returned empty-handed, and sometime that evening, I cracked.
I've got a confession to make. I brought a tin of sardines with me. I know Louis said leave everything behind, but I thought one tin wouldn't hurt, be a nice little treat. And I was a few feet away from my shelter in the forest, seemingly all on my own, scoffing them, and a bayaka walked by and caught me red-handed. Now they're saying that the smell of the sardines has driven the animals away from this area, and that's why they haven't been able to catch anything. So I'm feeling pretty bad, because it's one thing being hungry myself, but I'm also now responsible for everyone else's hunger.
I solemnly burnt my empty tin of sardines to try and rid the forest of its oily, fishy smell. But it was not just the humidity that was weighing down the atmosphere in camp at breakfast. Louis was putting a brave face on it.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, Louis. It was a stupid thing to do.
Well, you know, you don't know the forest, and you don't know what you're supposed to do in the forest, so you're learning, you know. And they see, you know, you've made a house and everything. That's more than I've done. That's impressed them, and you know, I'm not contributing that much.
The hunters decided that I'd best spend the day away from the nets, foraging with Bumbu, Dokuli and the other women. It was billed as an opportunity to see the vegetable bounty of the forest, but it felt like punishment. Our first stop was the mighty Paiute Tree. Surrounding its enormous trunk, masses of nuts littered the forest floor.
What are they, Louis? It's called Paiute. It drops these. This is what they're after, this. And they split it open and they take out the center. You wouldn't think, just seeing it on the ground, that it's something edible.
No. Tasty?
Very tasty. I love it. It's my favorite sauce.
Is it?
When they make sauce with it for meat, it's my favorite thing. I eat it every day.
A few minutes collecting the nuts was followed by a good half hour opening them up. The kernels were wafer thin, making the whole process, especially in my hands, an energy-negative activity. But I suppose for a tasty sauce, you should go that extra mile.
What is it? This is cocoa. It's the edible leaf. It's about the only leaf that they eat in the forest.
Really, the only one?
The only one. There's some stuff on the edge of the forest that they eat, but this is the only leaf from the deep forest that they eat.
Nice little bundle of it. It's an extraordinary paradox that this lowland Congo forest, second only to the Amazon in biodiversity, contains only one leaf the bayaka will eat. That so many of the others are toxic is thought to be a defense against relentless insect attack.
These people only eat one type of leaf, which is extraordinary, but it's the case, and I couldn't distinguish the leaf of the vine from the leaf of the tree. I mean, there are lots of usable things in this forest. Identification is the key, and if you don't have the knowledge, well, it's potentially very dangerous as well.
Gosh,
that's not it.
That's not it.
That's just a root from some tree.
I'd cut that out. Bumbu looked at me pityingly as I expressed disbelief at their knowledge, but at least I wasn't alone.
Even with all my years living with them, I just still can't recognize these.
I'm glad you said that, though, because I was feeling horribly.
I mean, I could lie down and starve to death with
right next to
these
one,
sort of right next to me.
Yeah.
It's a bountiful forest, but without knowledge, it's nothing. You know, talking to Louis, the guy's been here for 17 years, and he doesn't think he could survive. So what chance do I have?
We'd had a productive day, and I was chipper when we got back to camp, and even dared hope that without me, the hunters may have been successful.
Yamote.
Oh.
There's only nothing.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. They only saw one animal in the afternoon that got away.
Gosh, after all day.
Yeah.
That's not so good, is it?
I don't know what happened that night, but when we woke up the following morning for the 6th day's hunting, despite everyone's hunger, there was a different mood in the camp.
And what about the sardine effect? Could you ask if it's sort of gone completely now?
Eso. Bayang bon sardine. Est-ce que ba sardine va buta bokelo body?
No. Sardine ang buta ka bukesa ka boy.
What was that?
He said no. That effect is finished because for a while you haven't eaten sardines, so it should be all right.
Good. Very good. The Baiaka were obviously as delighted as me that I was clean. But their reaction made me feel even more guilty on the trek out to that day's hunting grounds. So complete was my rehabilitation that I was even admitted to the inner circle. If anything, it was even more confusing from the inside than it was on the margin. But at last, the shouting had come to something.
Chevrotain, it's a primitive, it resembles the ancestors of pigs and antelopes.
What's the lady doing with her house now?
It's her hunting that
Oh, it's her neck. Okay, yeah.
Oh, this is good. Chevrotain, that is
Yes. Dinner, Louis.
That's a big animal.
That is a seriously big
finally
animal.
do the camp with the other catches.
Bye-bye manioc, hello meat.
Chevrotain's a good catch.
What does it taste like?
It's delicious. It's a white meat. It's really good.
How do they do it? Boil it?
Well, they'll boil it up first, and then they make a sauce, and they...
Sounding pretty good already. Once we'd broken our duck, the floodgates opened. The escapee from 2 days ago, a porcupine.
What's that like to eat?
also very good eating.
Is it?
I could use the normal joke and say it tastes like chicken. It doesn't really taste like chicken. It tastes like porcupine.
And as final proof that the sardines were behind me, blue duiker.
My stomach juices are really turning now. It's going to be a bonanza feast tonight. I'm excited because I'm going to get a full belly for the first time. The hunt has come up with the goods, which sort of makes me feel, well, even more stupid. Bringing that tin of sardines was tantamount to a confession by me that I didn't have complete faith in the Baiaka here. And of course they've proved me wrong because they've come up with the goods. So I should have had more faith from the start.
Thank you.
Nice net one. And see. Porcupine skin, little snack before the main meal.
Needless to say, this is the first time I've eaten porcupine. It's very good. Night fell, and we tucked into a 3-course feast, which, despite the rudimentary cooking techniques, was one of the most delicious meals I've ever eaten.
Looks superb.
have porcupine here with chopped cocoa, and chevrotain here.
Oh, wow, it's superb.
Lucky. Delicious.
That was worth waiting for, Lou.
It's one of my favorite meals.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Even kings don't eat this well.
No, you're right. They really don't.
After 5 days of bad hunting brought on by my sardines, the Bayaka expressed their relief at the day's success, singing the songs that have echoed through these forests for thousands of years. Sitting listening to them with a full belly, it was difficult to remember that I was an alien here, that without their astonishing knowledge, I wouldn't have lasted a day. The forest, far from the malign and carnivorous place it had been when I arrived in the Congo, now closed in around us like a protecting veil.